cause these problems, and yet how come the public doesn't know about it?
And isn't it treated like a kind of a weird, kind of something that is not understood in a way by the medical scientists at this point, but it's a variable, it's there, but it's no reason to kind of look at it because it doesn't make sense,
Oh, well, okay, here's the problem. Number one, is it real? Well, here's a fact. So this is a fact statement, how real it is. It is fully established that one-third of all medical healings are strictly due to the placebo effect. That's a fact. Now, you say, well, how much do we know about the placebo effect? And the answer is hardly anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, why not? It seems to be very important. And if one-third of the people heal themselves with a positive effect, we really should ask this question. If one-third heal themselves with positive thinking, how many people get sick because of the nocebo negative thinking? Well, obviously, it's got to be most of them at some degree, and because most of us are thinking negative thoughts about our abilities to be strong and healthy. And then you say, but why isn't medicine studying this? Well, number one, at least in the United States, I can tell you exactly why. There's no research on this, and the reason is, it's not in the interest of the drug industry to study this. Because if you could heal yourself with your mind, then who's going to buy the drugs?
Yeah, sure.
And so, it's the same reason as this. Because, answer this question, for example. Are you familiar with that there are many more efficient ways to create energy on this planet other than using fossil fuel?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. And I say, then how come we're not using them?
Yeah, exactly.
And the answer is, it's not in the interest of the industry that sells oil.
Sure, that's right.
So then I say, it's not in the interest of the industry of the pharmaceutical company to let you know that you could heal yourself without drugs.
And it's no reason for us to sit around and waiting for them to change this, right?
Right. That's why it's time for us to start knowing who we are and put the power back into our own hands.
Yeah.
We've always been powerful, but we bought beliefs from the time we were children, that the kind of beliefs that, who do we think we are? Like a parent would say, who do you think you are? And then we as a child will say, nobody. And the answer is yes, you're not powerful. It's interesting, in Australia and New Zealand, they actually have a term for this disempowering activity. They call it cutting the tall poppy. And what that means is, if you plant poppies, like a whole row of poppies, all of the poppies flowers grow up and they're all about the same height. But every now and then, some poppy goes like a foot or two higher than all the other poppies. So the gardener cuts the tall poppies so that they're all the same height. And so when they say this in Australia and New Zealand about child development, cutting the tall poppies, what they're saying is, if a child expresses things that are beyond the ordinary, then the nature of the parent is to repress that, cut that ability away, so that the child becomes average. And so when a child expresses powers, the tendency of the community is to actually make them average by denying their powers or making them ashamed of their powers or afraid of their powers, so they don't exercise them. And we lose these powers because of that.
Exactly, and in your book you have a chapter called "Parental Life Experiences Shape Their Children's Genetic Character," and this is fascinating. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, this is the fun stuff. This part of the book was based on my research from 40 years ago. I was working on stem cells, and it's interesting because today people think stem cells are something brand new that just came about recently. And the fact was that my experiments, I was fortunate enough to work with the primary scientist who actually cultured and cloned stem cells. So I got my training from this brilliant scientist about stem cells. But what was interesting about it is that I would isolate a single stem cell and put it in a petri dish all by itself. And by doing that, when the cell would divide, then it would make 2 stem cells, and then they would divide, and there'd be 4 and 8 and 16, and pretty soon there are thousands of cells in the culture dish. But the important part is every cell was genetically identical to all the other cells because they came from the same parent. So they were like all identical twins. And my first experiments that sort of blew my mind was I took a culture of identical cells and split it up into 3 petri dishes. And in each petri dish I put a different growth medium, slightly different constituents or stuff in the growth medium. So I had 3 different culture media. And I had I put the cells into 3 dishes, each one with a different media. And what happened was, in one dish the cells formed muscle, the other dish the cells formed bone, and the third dish the cells formed fat cells. Well, the interesting fact is, but all the cells were genetically identical when they were put in the dishes. So I say, well, why did one become muscle and one become bone and one become fat? And the answer was, not because of the genetics, because they were all genetically the same. The reason why the cells became different is because they were put into different environments. And all of a sudden I said, well, wait, because at that time we were very much in science talking about genes control life, and my experiments said, wait, the control is not by the genes, the control is by the environment, because that was the only thing that was different. So I started to trace this and came across the mechanisms by which the environment information actually changes the genetic readout. So this was pioneering studies. I was only one of many, but I'm very happy to have been there early in the game to see this. But it has led to a whole new field of science. The new field of science is called epigenetic control. Now, what's different about it? There was an old field of science that most everybody in the audience has been trained with. That old field was called genetic control. Well, genetic control in English, when you put it, it means control by genes. And I say, yeah, but what's epigenetic control? Well, the prefix epi is the Greek prefix for above. So if I say epigenetic control, literally that says control above the genes. Well, this is the new science, and why is it important? It says genes are blueprints like potentials. Genes are potentials. But the new mechanism, epigenetic control, is what selects the genes and selects the potential. So the control was not in the genes, the control is above the genes. And what's above the genes? Above the genes is the mind. The mind of the cell or the mind of the human is what selects our genes and can change the gene, the readout of the gene activity. Here's what's very interesting. Old science. A gene is a blueprint. That's what the old science is. It's a blueprint to make a protein. A protein, the body, the building blocks that make our bodies, the building blocks that give us our shape and our behavior, those are called proteins. And so to make these very complex molecules, the DNA is a blueprint to make these molecules. Well, now with the new science, it says this, is that with epigenetic control, you can take one of those genes, one blueprint, and you can make over, listen to this number, 30,000 different variations from the same blueprint. What that means is, we used to think genes are defining who we are, but the new science says that our mind can lead to 30,000 variations of every gene, which means all of a sudden we're not limited by the genes, we're only limited by the mind.
That's fascinating. So what I was actually wanted to ask you, just sneak in here, because you mentioned stem cell research, and there was this recent thing where someone from the, let's see here, what does it say, University of Wisconsin used actually a virus, added a virus to 4 different skin cells and actually turned skin cells into stem cells. Did you hear about this?
yeah, of course, it's very important, because let's explain something about a stem cell, because I think people hear the word, but they don't really know basically what they represent, okay? In every one of us right now, you, me, every listener on this show right now, our bodies have stem cells all over the place. And stem cells are like embryonic cells. They're potential, they're reserve cells. They wait until we need them, and then they divide, and they create whatever it is we need. If you need to repair muscle, then the cells will become muscle. If you need to repair the bone, the stem cells become bone. You want to repair brain, you got stem cells that'll make new nerve cells.
Yeah.
So basically, throughout all of our bodies are stem cells, and they are embryonic-like cells. Now, when cells mature, see, so when you have an embryo cell which has all the potential to become anything in a body, but when a cell decides to become a muscle cell or a bone cell or a fat cell, all the cells have the same genes. What you do, it's like a computer program, and you go in and you select some of the genes that you want to make muscle, which is a different set of genes that I would select if I wanted to make bone. So when the cells become mature, they only use a certain selection of genes out of the whole collection of genes called the genome. So every mature cell is only using a certain number of genes, but a stem cell has all the genes available to be used. So it hasn't picked them yet. And so when research was looking for stem cells, they were looking for the original cells in the body. They're scattered all over the place, that actually are these embryonic-like cells. But what they found is you can like reverse engineer or unprogram a mature cell, like the skin cell. And by unprogramming it, meaning open up all the options of the genes, not just the ones that made it a skin cell. So by reverting the gene, reverting the genome into the earlier version, you can take a skin cell, which is a mature cell, but then open up the genes so that you can reselect a whole different bunch of genes and make something different with it. Then you can take a mature cell and turn it back into a stem cell. And that's what the new research is showing. Now the question, which is like a joke to me, because it says, well, wait, we all have stem cells. Then why should we have to wait for the drug companies to figure out how to make them work? Why are we giving our stem cells to research scientists to make them work? And you would have to say, well, they obviously they're not working in us, so if we would figure out how to make them work, then we could control them. And the reality is, but the question is, wait, if we all have stem cells, we have to ask them why don't they work for us? I like this joke. It's sort of like, I ask people in my lectures sometimes, I say, do you think God gave us stem cells and no way to use them, that we have to wait for the drug companies to figure out how to use them? It's a joke. Of course we must know how to use them. That's why we got them.
Sure.
The question is, why don't they work for most of us?
Well, they work, but only when we're... Well, they do work, but only when we're young, right?
No, they work every day of your life.
Okay.
Here, I'll give you a fact that you can see why you need them. The lining of the digestive tract from the mouth all the way down into the gut and all the way out to the end, the lining layer of cells is replaced every 3 days.
Okay, yeah,
Meaning the cells don't live for a long time. But then the question is, so where did you get the new cells from? And the answer is stem cells.
Okay, sure.
And your skin, every day, your skin cells are sloughing off, and you're replacing your skin every, like over a few months.
Sure.
All your skin is replaced.
Exactly. I've heard the thing that your entire body is actually regenerated every 7 years or something, I think.
Well, it's not everything equally. So the gut every 3 days, skin cells every couple of months. Other cells may last you 50 or 100 years. So you can't say that everything is replaced.
Okay.
But here's the point. Anything that is replaced, you have to say, well, where did the replacement come from? The answer is stem cells. Now, why doesn't it work for some people who have diseases or illnesses where the stem cells don't seem to work for them? That's why we say, okay, let's give the drug company and figure out how to make it work, right? No, the first question is, why in these people don't the stem cells work? And